The objective of my small keynote address of about half an hour or so will be to share with you the basic issues or the challenges which are there when you look at the whole question of introducing or developing human excellence in the students of today. Swamiji gave a very simple word for it, which is man-making. And he said that if we can make men, we are going to actually awaken and invoke that human excellence in people. We cannot give it, we can invoke it, because all that excellence already exists in people. And that is the idea that Swamiji had. The first point which I'd like to bring up is that Swami Vivekananda proposed a fairly fundamental shift in the vision of individual excellence as compared to what was existing prior to him, and also what is commonly understood in most academic institutions. The traditional view of education says that our academic capacities are at the center. So we will try to develop the academic capacities. You begin with the 3 R's and then so on and so forth. You go on developing various academic skills, the ability to comprehend, the ability to understand, and then you go on and develop many thinking skills. All these are part and parcel of academic excellence and academic capacities. And what has also been felt by most educational institutions is that in addition to that, as an add-on, we will give some kind of skills for life. Typically, for example, a life skills program in a college will usually be an add-on module, maybe 1/10 or 1/15 of the total course. Similarly, communication skills or some other idea like that will be given will be given as one additional course. The main menu being, the academic subjects. And a good student is usually considered to be a student who does brilliantly academically. So if you find that there's a student who is not attending classes so much, but who is organizing the event outside, the teacher will say, very good, but you're not doing the main task for which you have come here, which is to study. So at all points in time, all these add-on skills that people acquire, they acquire in spite of our educational system, not because of it. In fact, it is just one of the things that some of the people who have a genuine interest for it do it. How many colleges in Bombay give genuine importance to not extracurricular activities? Because extracurricular again means the same thing. There is curricular, which is the core, and extracurricular. That means all other activities are extra to the core. This is the vision with which we all live. Now, if you look at what Swamiji had to say, he actually had a slightly different vision of the whole thing. He says that you might have academic capacities, but beneath those academic capacities, inside the human being, you have to develop, and look, there are 2 words here, dynamic human capacities. This is a term which was coined by Swami Ranganathananda to describe this idea of man-making of Swamiji. What he said was, it is not that you just have some capacities. Infinite capacity is one thing, but it has to be dynamic in nature. For example, we learn in science potential energy and kinetic energy. So everybody may have infinite potential energy. The question is that it has to be converted into kinetic energy, into action, into the ability to do things in life, the ability to solve problems, to deal with challenges, many issues which are there. All this comes because these are all the dynamic inner capacities which are needed. So the real point that Swamiji made was, it is not so important to focus on academic excellence alone, but it is important to go deeper and to build a human being's capacity to deal with life in a dynamic way. Now let me elaborate a little on this thought. The first thing that he actually kept exhorting people, he asked people to develop an inner vision of life. Let us see this a little carefully. Any amount of knowledge cannot awaken the vision inside a human being. Because the vision inside a human being is awakened with a completely different set of parameters. A vision means it's, there is an inner purpose to life. There is an inner understanding of how life must transform for oneself, for others. A certain view of existence which is not a second-hand view, but which is a first-hand original view of life. Now this, for example, is what he meant by inner vision. So Swamiji's idea was that a vision has to come from within. It cannot be told to somebody, it has to be awakened. Now that is a powerful new idea in our educational system. How do you awaken this capacity for this vision in students, so that they are able to do something powerful in their life, something new, something transformative, something that will build this nation, that will transform the lives of their fellow men? That is the first question. The second thing which he wanted was that he wanted that students have the capacity to deal with and evolve through challenges. Now this is a very interesting idea, because let us understand one thing, that the whole environment is transforming so fast that the number of challenges that are out there are far, far greater than anything that the education system prepares people for. In fact, nothing in our educational system prepares you to deal with the kinds of challenges that not only you face in your workplace, but also what you face in your own life. Now the whole question is that when you face a challenge, how do you deal with it? Usually the response for people is to cope with it. When you say cope with challenges, it means, oh, the challenge has come, I have to bear it, somehow I have to manage it. This has been the traditional view of our dealing with challenges for centuries. And that is the same view that our students carry, because this is the same view that their parents have taught them. Oh, there is some difficulty, you have to bear it. Life is like that, there are ups and downs. Somehow you manage, then later life will turn to your advantage, life will turn in a different way. Hopefully things will improve. This is the whole attitude of coping with challenges. But Swamiji said, no, can I look at a challenge? Can I not only deal with it face to face, can I use that challenge to grow as a human being? So that every time I come out of a challenge, if I face a new challenge, I should come out a bigger human being, a stronger human being, someone who's more capable of dealing with life. Now that was a completely different vision as compared to what our country has taught its people and what our students learn even today. Don't cope with challenges, use challenges as an instrument for transforming yourself and growing yourself. He called life as a gymnasium. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of that word gymnasium is that when you go to a gymnasium, there is stress. You have to apply stress, but when you apply stress, your muscles become stronger. Similarly, life, if there is a stress, can I use that stress to make my muscles stronger, to make my human muscles stronger? Can I become different and bigger? That is the second idea that he had when he said that you have to build man-making and human capacities in people. The third idea that he said was that you need people to develop active concern. This is a very important idea. Why I use the word active concern. For long, people have talked about caring for other human beings. If you see many of the ideas which you find in even Indian literature, etc., people do talk about caring for others. People do talk about the fact that one should be concerned about the welfare of all, etc., etc. But Swamiji said, I want active concern. I want people to do something about it. I don't want people to say that yes, there are troubles in our country. Yes, let us say the streets are dirty, roads, are not made, projects don't get done on time, many things that are going wrong in the country. He says, yes, it is one thing to be concerned about it, but it is even more important to be actively concerned. So he wanted that our students, our youth of tomorrow actually become actively concerned, which means once you get actively concerned, you do something about it, you get engaged in it. Now the question that he was asking is, can I actually get my educational system to be a catalyst for this kind of active concern in life? Should it be a place where students learn to do something about what they see wrong in the world around them, or what they think can be improved through their own intelligence, through their own imagination, through their own efforts, to their own contribution? Can something be done? That is what he meant when he said capacity to demonstrate active concern. And the fourth idea which was there is the capacity to act, and now this is a very important idea again, with both inner integrity and outward external values and ethics. So everybody says that you must live with ethics, you must live with values, etc. But Swamiji was talking about something much bigger than that. He says, can you live with integrity to yourself? And his vision of inner integrity was so deep, that is, he said that you need to actually see what is true within, you be true to your vision of life and then act out of it. That is why he was actually in that sense the biggest revolutionary of them all, because he wanted total integrity to what human beings believed in. He talked about root and branch reform, not only in our society but in the human being itself. So when he said that I want root and branch reform, he said that as human beings, even when you are looking at saying that I need to act with values, I have to transform my values from the roots upward. It is not that I only display behavior which is socially correct, but I transform myself totally so that I think and act in only one way, which is in the way which is for the common good. Now that is a radically different thing, because we find that within all of us, at a surface level, obviously many of us teach people how to be well behaved. So we train and develop well behaved people, but that's very, very different from actually creating a completely different inner integrity. Now, if this was his vision of human excellence, now comes the next thought: how do you develop it? And here, for example, you find that Swami Ranganathananda, who was in that sense perhaps one of the foremost exponents of Swami Vivekananda's work, who interpreted Swami Vivekananda's work and brought it a little closer to us in our understanding. He recommended that, he said that if I want to have this expanding human excellence, where you have this man making that is going on and you are expanding on all three dimensions, on your heart, in your head, in your actions, if you want to have this continuous expansion of a human being, how do you do it? And for that, there are three fundamental ideas which Swami Ranganathananda refers to and he distills from Swami Vivekananda's writings. The first idea that he talks about is Shraddha. The idea of Shraddha is that you have on one side, in our academic excellence, in our traditional view of faith, we are really looking at something which is called faith built on experience. Even as a teacher, which are the students whom we like most? The students who are appreciated most are the students who have a track record of performance. You have students who are actually who have already done something, and based on that we try to reinforce this whole sense of actually that they are good. Therefore, what you find is that in our educational system there is a chasm. There are a few students who develop faith in themselves early, in whom their teachers also develop faith and do grow by leaps and bounds. And you find that a balanced number of students, if in 7th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard, they are not doing something, which is, they are not standing top of the class, they are not doing something which is unique, immediately they are relegated to the back of the class. They are not given any chances. All the chances are given only to the students who have already performed. So the whole thinking that is built is one of a faith built around experience. Now, even in a human being, if I say that I have faith in myself, that faith, if it is built on experience, what actually happens is you are saying that I have done it before, so I can do it again, which does not give me the ability to try out new things. If tomorrow somebody has not done something, he says, oh, I am not an expert on the subject, so I cannot do it. So all the time there is a whole tragedy that comes about, that whatever people have done before, they do more of it. Now that is the traditional view of what they mean by faith. But here what Swamiji said was that you need something which you can call creative faith. When he said creative faith, he said that you need to have faith that enables us to go beyond our boundaries. Faith that is built on the idea that humans have infinite possibilities. Though it is known, it is very little practiced in our educational system that you try to have infinite faith in the students' infinite capabilities or possibilities. Can we for a minute truly believe that those students are capable of anything? If tomorrow a student comes and tells you that I'll do something which is very unique or new, most teachers are likely to turn around and say, well, have you done it before? What track record do you have? All this doesn't work in our country. It's all based on our historical experience. None of us actually try to give confidence or strength to people based on their human possibilities or on their infinite potential within. So it's one thing to quote Swamiji and say that, everybody has infinite potential. It is another thing altogether to translate that into actually having faith that people can do it, that you yourself can do it. If tomorrow I asked many of the people here that you go and learn a completely new subject and try and teach it, would you have the courage to do it? You would say, no, I can't do it. How can you learn at this age or that age? What is all that? That's all based on a faith built on experience. Suppose someone came and told you, don't use classroom teaching as a method of teaching and still teach better than how you are teaching. Would we agree? There would be so many barriers in our head. Why would those barriers come? That is because we have faith built on experience. We would not say that maybe I can try it out. Maybe there are possibilities in the human beings which can be used, which can radically change the way that person engages with that knowledge. So the fact is that all of us also are trapped in a faith built on experience. So that kind of faith is a very limited faith. And that faith is not conducive to growth. It's not conducive to expansion of the personality. It is not conducive to trying out new things. It is conducive to doing the same routine thing better and better, to become an expert in a small thing for the next 20 years. While on the other hand, a creative faith is what Swamiji wanted. A bold faith, a faith which said that you can go out and try out new things. Now this is the first enabler that we need to give students if we want them to actually develop that man-making. Men cannot be made unless we believe that they are men. If we believe that they are worms, then they will remain worms. If we believe that they are going to be narrow academic worms who are just going to go in the same subject matter round and they are not capable of anything more and act out of that history, then that is all that we will get. So the first big shift as teachers would be that we have to believe that in that creative faith in students. Believe, try it out, test it out, and let us see what happens with that student. So this is the first big message that might be there out of Swamiji's teachings for us in terms of how we might transform. The second big thought which actually comes about from Swamiji's teachings is the whole idea of academic excellence is viewed on knowledge of the subject matter. When you use the word academic excellence itself, it means academic excellence in which subject? In physics, in maths, in some subjects like in psychology, in sociology, where are you an expert? So the whole logic is static knowledge and focus on the subject matter. That is how our university system is organized. That is how our disciplines are organized. That is how our faculty thinking is organized. That is how our papers are published. That is how, for example, students get their degrees. All this is built on the notion of static knowledge. But Swamiji's vision of human excellence was radically different. He was talking about saying that how do I leverage whatever knowledge is needed so that I can transform on oneself and society using the knowledge gained. And usually one domain is not enough for that. You need to be multidisciplinary automatically. If I want to go and solve some problem, I cannot solve that problem with knowledge of engineering alone sometimes. I need knowledge of engineering, I need knowledge of psychology, I need knowledge of social sciences, I need knowledge of public administration, I might need knowledge of various subjects. So a person who wants to bring about change, can never be rooted in subject matter. He has to be rooted in the purpose. He has to be rooted in bringing about change in society, in making a contribution. Therefore, you find that people who are really big contributors, they learn many subjects in a course of time. They become masters of 15, 20, 30 subjects because they learn various subjects in order to achieve the goal in front of them. In fact, I had occasion for meeting one such academic. He's been vice chancellor of a university, etc. A person who worked closely with Mr. Abdul Kalam and who was involved in many of the space launches. And I was talking to him, and he started speaking. The conversation went on for almost 2 hours, and he spoke on 15 different topics. So I asked him, how do you know so much on so many topics? And he said, well, I had to learn it. For what purpose? For the fact that if I have to send a satellite out in ISRO, then I have to learn various topics if I have to deal with various people. That means he had ceased to think in terms of static knowledge. He was now operating purely in the realm of dynamic know-how, how to make things happen using that knowledge. Now that is a radically different shift in our thinking. And that is the second big shift that our educational system may have to undergo if we want to translate Swami Vivekananda's ideas into action. So that is the second idea which is there. So the real definition of Vidya is not really knowledge itself, but how that knowledge becomes an instrument for the welfare of all. And how we as teachers, if we believe that we are conduits or pipelines of that Vidya to our students, then we have to see how we are pipelines of that transforming knowledge. That knowledge that can transform individuals and society rather than only a static domain knowledge which is there. So that is the second big thought which I would like to share with you. The third big thought that Swami Vivekananda really talked about is the idea of Upanishad, which is the whole idea of saying that academic excellence is all about acquisition and comprehension. That is the process of learning. When you look at acquisition and comprehension, you develop and transform your functional capabilities in knowledge. Therefore, it is true that students who are very good in their academics actually develop some faculty of concentration. They are able to write well. They are able to develop many abilities. Let us not deride or say that academic excellence is valueless. That is not the conversation that is going on here. We are saying beyond that what is there. And so all these qualities they do develop because the processes that are followed in academic excellence do need all these things. But there is something that more which Swamiji wanted, and he time and again exhorted people to dive deep, to go deep into the subject, to take up one idea, make it your own life. The whole thought that he really talked about at every stage was that I have to plunge into the subject totally. I have to become one with it. I have to engage with it heart and soul completely, which is what all great scientists do, for example. They are one with their subject matter. Now that deep engagement, when it takes place, something dramatic happens, which is our modes of thinking itself undergo a change. Let me give you an example. We teach science to so many students. Maybe millions, lakhs of students, lakhs of teachers are teaching science in this country. But how many people become scientific in their approach to life? How many of them have a scientific mode of thinking? So the scientific thinking is a mode of thinking which can be applied in every part of life. Where I think through the subject matter, I experiment, I build hypotheses, I test it out, I look for data, I look for hard evidence, I don't depend only on my opinion and on others' opinion, and I try to root it in some kind of experimentation and reality. These are all modes of thought. Now, how many people have that mode of scientific thought in our society? Very few. Most people know science, but do not know the scientific mode of thought. Now the whole point of education is to build that scientific mode of thought and not to just teach science, because science evolves, but the scientific mode of thought deepens, becomes deeper and stronger in a human being. A scientific mode of thought transforms the human being, while science itself is a subject matter which is growing from all over the world. So they are two different things altogether. And therefore, the whole idea of academic excellence is all about subject matter, while the whole idea of human excellence is about changing the way people think about life itself, the way people think about themselves itself. So this is the radical different shift that you are talking about when Swamiji spoke about human excellence. So if I really summarize all these ideas, I would say that you just see what a big shift that Swamiji proposed more than 100 plus years ago on when he was talking about this whole idea of human excellence. He said that don't go in for a faith built only on your history. Don't say that I can do this because I have done this before. Say that I can do it because I can do anything. Number two, do not just focus on trying to learn knowledge because knowledge is valuable. But he says, look, dedicate yourself to the transforming power of knowledge, to the idea that I can transform myself, transform my people around me, the conditions around me, and transform society with that knowledge. So that you need a heart first, and the head must support the heart. That is the meaning of that word dynamic know-how. The heart drives your energy, and it is the head that provides after that the knowledge that makes the heart actually move mountains. It gives you the levers to move the mountains. But the intention to move the mountains comes from the heart. And that is what he wanted when he talked about dynamic know-how. And the third thing that he wanted was, he said that it is not enough to actually only try to develop science or to develop mathematics, but to develop those mathematical modes of mind. That mathematical mode of mind is a very deep mode of mind, a scientific mode of mind, a deep mode of mind. Develop those modes of mind so that you can apply it in all parts of our society. Now this is the vision of human excellence that Swamiji really had for all of us. But at the center lies this whole vision of man-making and asking the question that can we actually produce men who can transform our society rather than mere degree holders. Thank you.